When people were asking me about it, I would tell them what I was doing. This probably happened 8, 9, 10 times. People were saying, you should write a book. Now, remember, this is like 15, 20 years ago, so that I can share my knowledge. Well, as I think one of the things I really like that I put into the book and that I've gotten feedback on is I think most people, for the most part, know what they should be doing, but they
Mm,
can't figure out how to incorporate it into their own lives. I think with self care, especially for women, we want to care for others, that sometimes our own needs, we don't take care of ourselves.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, I need to do this for the kids, or I need to do
yeah.
this for my friend, or I need to do this for the community. That our own needs get pushed down. You can park as far away as I can from the grocery store, walking up steps and walking
Yes.
down steps. A good rule of thumb is 1 story up and 2 stories down.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today we're joined by Mary-Beth Newell. Mary-Beth is a registered nurse with a master's degree in science who has decades of experience experimenting with a variety of skincare regimens, exercise routines, hair care, makeup, nutrition plans, and self-care that has led her to looking and feeling at least 10 years younger without the use of injectables or plastic surgery. She was motivated to write a book after people kept asking her, once they learned her age, how did she do it? And after she would answer, they would reply, you should write a book. So she's thrilled to share her tips and tricks and processes with everybody in her book, Anti-Aging and Secrets of Healthy Living to Stop the Clock. In today's conversation, we're talking about looking and feeling younger on the inside and out. Mary-Beth shares some of her favorite routines to keep looking younger and tips on how we can all incorporate small steps into our day that will help us stop the clock. Mary-Beth, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Julie. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited for this conversation. And for those that are listening on audio, if you're not familiar with Mary-Beth, check out the video on YouTube because you have to see her to understand why we're having this conversation today. But I'm going to ask you, I'm so excited about your book. And I just want to ask you, I know you have a healthcare background, but what made you write the book and kind of focus on this anti-aging inside and out, which is really the only way?
Mhm. Well, thank you, Julie. As you mentioned, I'm in healthcare. I've been a registered nurse for almost 45 years. So I like to say I'm an oldie but a goodie.
I love it.
But about 15 or 20 years ago, when my colleagues would find out how old I was, people would say, what are you doing? So I thought
Fair.
everybody had the same knowledge as I did, but being a nurse and just very curious about everything. I think I gathered a lot more information than the average person and was testing everything out. And I do have to say, the practices that I utilize are holistic
Mm.
and natural. So even though some people may lean more towards plastic surgery or injectables, that isn't my path. So my path, there's nothing wrong with that if people want to go that route.
That's a
Yeah,
choice, right?
yeah.
And for those listeners with autoimmunity, putting neurotoxins in your body might not be the best choice, or fillers or anything. So, which is why I'm so excited for this conversation.
So when people were asking me about it, and of course I would tell them what I was doing, And repeatedly, I mean, this probably happened 8, 9, 10 times. People were saying, you should write a book. And so now remember, this is like 15, 20 years ago. So probably about 2.5 years ago, I thought, okay, so that I can share my knowledge as
Yeah.
well as I think one of the things I really like that I put into the book and that I've gotten feedback on is I think most people, for the most part, know what they should be doing, but they
Mm,
can't figure out how to incorporate it into their own lives. And
yes.
so I try to give ideas on how you can incorporate these ideas into your busy lifestyle.
I love that as you're speaking my language as a coach. It's all about if the knowledge was enough, we would all be healthy, right? We can all read
Mhm.
books and process and listen to podcasts and learn. It's that how to, I say, is the knowledge doesn't help at all if you're not putting it in action. And so, and I know because I've listened to other interviews you've done and just even the approach in the book, it's the small steps, right? I want to actually, what is the title of the book?
It's anti-aging and secrets of healthy living to stop the clock.
Which
And I say,
I love. Yeah.
so it's a guide to looking younger, feeling fantastic, and I say wowing the world.
Yes. I love that. My puppy just got wowed. So I mentioned the whole inside out, right? It's
Mhm.
both. It's nobody looks good when they feel terrible. Like or not for long. Maybe you can find a filter or something.
Yeah.
But and so I want to talk about your approach. You have 5 areas that you
Mhm.
share with readers in the book. Um, just share those with us, and then we'll kind of pick one and dive in.
So there's 5 main areas. So I talk about exercise, nutrition, self-care, taking care of yourself and prioritizing yourself, skincare, and then hair and makeup ideas.
I love it. I love it. And just focusing on one thing is not going to get you where you want to be, right? Whether it's that you're, struggling and you want to feel better, or it's you want to stop the clock, look better, feel better. I feel younger. I'm turning 56 next week than I did in my 30s. So it is possible. Um, and I would say of that list, and listeners are going to go, no, that's not true. The exercise and the nutrition to me is the lower hanging fruit. Because, and again, it's the how to fit it in, how to do the things, which I love. And we can touch on some of that. But self-care, whatever you're doing, if you don't have self-care, it's not going to matter. And
Mhm.
then the skincare I want to talk about too, because it's fun and I did not inherit my mother's skin. So, but let's talk about what do you mean by self-care?
Well, I think with self-care, especially for women,
Hmm.
so many women, we want to take care of other people. We want to care for others, that sometimes our own needs, uh, uh, we don't take care of ourselves.
Yeah,
So it's like, okay, I need to do this for the kids, or I need to do
yeah,
this for my friend, or I need to do this for the community, that our own needs get pushed down.
yep,
And I don't think people realize that you do have to pay attention to yourself. If you're burning the candle at both ends,
yeah,
there's not going to be anything left of yourself
right.
in order to take care of other people. So even if you want to take care of other people, you're not going to be able to do it.
Sure.
And again, sometimes people think it's selfish to spend some
No,
time
it
taking
is
care of
self-care
themselves.
is
So I like to remind people that when you're on the airplane, they
right.
tell you, and I used to wonder, why do you put your own oxygen mask on before
Mhm.
helping others?
Yep,
And it's because it's the same thing with self care. If you
yep,
don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people.
Yes.
So,
I love that. That's my favorite, the oxygen mask. So you went there before I could even go there. It is so true though, because, and that's how we end up with autoimmune symptoms. That's how we end up, feeling older than we are and all the things. And it's like, okay, actually, when I take really good care of myself, whatever that means to me, part of my self-care is spending time with my horses. Like, I love that. That's not for everybody, you know, but my routine that I've created and the things that I know that fuel me and refresh me, make me a better mother, a better partner, a better clinic owner, a better a better human. Really,
mhm,
we can have a more positive impact on the world if we're taking care of ourselves. And that
yeah,
is contrary to how most of us, especially women, were raised. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm.
I like when I'm working with clients, I like to say, do you want your daughter what do you want to model for your daughter? And people are like, oh, like, yeah, they're going to do what you're doing, not what you're saying. So it's amazing. So self and all of this, I mean, exercise is self-care. Good
Right.
nutrition is self-care. Sleep is huge. There's all of it is, to me falls under self-care. But I want to dig in a little bit to skincare secrets. Um, because again, for people that are listening on audio, at least look up Mary-Beth, because there you would be like, there's no way she's been a nurse for as long as she has been. And again, without all of the help, from the plastic surgeons and med spas. So how first of all, what is it, just the nursing and medicine background? Like, how did you kind of even create your own routine that works so well for you?
Well, when I was growing up, my older sisters were 7 and 9 years older than me.
Okay,
And so they were teenagers, like in the late 60s. And as a little kid, I used to watch them getting ready to go out to dances and dates. And I was just, you're fascinated as a 5 or 6 year old watching them curl their hair and put on their makeup and everything. And so I think that's where I became interested in it. And then just, they tried all these beauty things. So that sort of ignited the curiosity in myself as I got older to try different things.
I love it, and I can totally see it. And wow, that's a lot of girls in one house.
Yeah, 4.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. So I would love for you to share some tips with listeners, but I'm actually really interested in your opinion on what are some don'ts? Like, what are things that people are doing that maybe they shouldn't be doing? Or if there are certain, ingredients and products we should be avoid. You know what I mean? What are the things that
Mhm.
are marketed to us, but really are at the very least not helpful, and or, you know, negative, have a negative impact?
Well, I would say one of the things that you always want to do is make sure that if you're going outside, you have some type of sunscreen on.
Okay.
So whether it's, and don't forget about your hands and your chest. You don't want to, your face
The
look
two parts
good,
that can't hide
the
aging very
before
well.
and the after.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want the before to give away your age. So remember to do that. Even if you're only going out for like 15 minutes to get some sun. I think if you just use some type of moisturizer or foundation or whatever that you're using on your face. I mean, some people don't wear any makeup, but you're probably putting
Sure.
some kind of a moisturizer on that
Right.
has some type of SPF protection. And then if you want to, you could just slather a little bit on your hands after you're done putting it on your face. So,
I
and
love
then
it.
certainly if your arms are going to be exposed, you want to put, some cream or spray or something on them to protect your skin. So I think that's one thing you definitely want to do. I do want to caution anyone if they do want to go sort of the Botox or filler route to make sure that they're going to a board certified plastic surgeon
Yeah,
and start low and go slow
I like that.
because sometimes people think they want things and then when you get it done, it's not natural. You
Right.
almost look bizarre. There's a
It's a
bizarre
really
look.
interesting trend. I remember, I shared before we hit record, I used to live in Miami, and I remember when I first moved there, which was 89, um, there was a plastic surgeon who gave everybody the same nose. You could tell who had gone to him for a nose job because he didn't have a lot of variety in his repertoire. And I remember even back then, and that was before, the whole med spa craze and fillers and all the things were so popular. I just remember thinking, like, why would you want it to be obvious, right? If you have something that you, for whatever your own reasons are, you want to change, like, why would you get an off the shelf nose? Or, and it's the same with that overdone,
Mm,
there is a way, and I'm not bashing. It's not for me. My fiance is a physician, and he had a med spa component to his functional medicine practice. But again, it was an inside out, lots of different kinds of things.
mhm,
And yeah, some of the clients want filler or, and you would never know. All very
mhm,
natural, but I don't, it's just, and I think maybe it's programming and social media and all the things of how we got to that place where being so clearly worked on and sometimes worked over has become like popular as it's because you, like you said, you can't like go backwards.
yeah,
So I love starting small and slow, if that's the route you want to
mm,
take. um yeah, I know you do exercises as part of your routine to keep your face looking like ridiculously young. So
yeah, yeah.
beautiful. So share with, I mean, do those really work? Like, and how do you fit it into your routine?
Well, there's a couple of different things you can do. So, facial exercises do work. Okay. Sometimes you have to spend some time doing it. There was JAMA dermatology article that they had women, middle-aged women, who did facial exercises. So it was like 30 minutes a day for like 8 weeks, but they looked 3 years younger. So
Wow.
that might not sound like a lot, but just like if your arms are going to get flabby, if you're not doing strength training, your face can get flabby too. So when we were little kids, do you remember learning your vowels? You
Yes.
go
Yes.
A-E-I-O-U to memorize the vowels. If you, in the book, I say, I'll take off, if you say your vowels in a very exaggerated method, you're going to be exercising your facial muscles. So A, E, I, O, U. So that's one way of exercising your facial muscles. And you can do that in the car. You can do that in the shower. You can do that as you're working on the computer. So that's one way of trying to exercise your
And
facial
it doesn't
muscles.
have to be a half hour straight, right? Like if you're
Now,
incorporating it into your day that way.
there's also, you can get it on Amazon, these, and it reminds me again of being a little kid. At Halloween, you'd get those plastic lips you'd put on. So there's
The
a
wax,
facial
yeah.
exercise. Well, this is like
Yeah.
silicone.
Uh-huh.
It's these pink plastic lips that you can put in your mouth and you And that exercises your mouth too. So there's a couple different ways of doing it.
Well, and
Um,
I want like for listeners to imagine, and I love the arm analogy because it's perfect. I mean, that's fillers became a thing because, tissue breaks down as we age. And so if you're exercising muscles, that's filler there, right?
hmm
Like that's in
Natural.
addition to the other, right? Like it's compensating. And I love that you said that the exercises work, but you have to do them.
You
It's
just can't think about them. You have
right.
to do
You can't just do them once. What
We're
are,
talking
yeah.
about doing something once. Another thing that I've been doing for probably 10 years is I have facial acupuncture that's
I
done.
was thinking about that
Yeah.
when we first started talking about the exercises. Share with listeners because I think it's not something I have experienced, but I have learned a lot about it and can totally see why it would be really helpful. So
Mhm.
share with listeners kind of
Yeah.
the why and what that's doing for you.
So I became familiar with it about 10 years ago when I was on a cruise and I bought some spa package. Well, an acupuncture. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll go get these three, sessions, thinking, okay, so I naively thought it would be like Botox. Okay, instead of Botox, you get it three times and you're good. Well, that was just the start. I'm like, oh, when I get home, I have to find an acupuncturist. But I did. So initially, you need to go like once a week or twice a week, whatever routine they develop for you. And then afterwards, once you go through that initial introductory period, it's every 4 weeks I go.
Okay, so once a month,
And
no big deal.
yeah, and my acupuncturist uses a method called Meizen, Meizen, and it actually means beautiful inside and out.
Love
So
it.
part of putting the needles in your face, and a lot of practitioners will use like a numbing solution, so you look like a pincushion, but it doesn't really
Right, you don't
hurt.
feel like one.
But she also sticks the needles in different parts of my body. So she might stick it in my tummy. She might stick some in my arm. She might stick some in my legs because she's trying to balance my energy.
Right.
And then you lay there and you're supposed to relax yourself as much as you can and, get into the zone so that your energy can work
Can
with the
shift. Yeah.
needles. But I really like it because it's inside and out. And as you do it, the acupuncture takes your face back into your natural, youthful look. So you,
Wow.
you don't end up with that bizarre looking look that sometimes you can get with other methods. But I really like it. And when I've been super busy in my life, sometimes I really look forward to just laying on that table for
Sure.
40 minutes to have time
Yeah.
to relax.
To practice what
And
you preach and have a little
mhm,
self-care.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you have tips for not every acupuncturist does facial acupuncture? So
Mhm.
do you have tips for listeners of how they could find a practitioner?
I would, well, one, to find out if it's something that they do. They may have some before and after pictures
Oh,
so that you
nice.
can take a look at that. And you're right, not everybody does do it, but I would definitely want to discuss it with them. And most of the time, you can go in for a free consultation.
Gotcha.
So they're
Yeah.
going to let you know. Acupuncture is not going to take you back 10 years. Okay, but what it can do is it stimulates your collagen and
Which,
it can get rid of like fine lines and prevent them from
yeah.
developing.
Yeah. So much gold in there. And it is everything is from the inside out. So
Hmm
I love that. I think that would be something I would recommend for listeners too is, don't to look for somebody who will do drop needles in your body as well for the whole point of acupuncture is balancing. And yes, and when in the face, we want to stimulate the collagen, but, don't just go get like an acupuncture facial. Like,
Right.
that you really want it to be balancing that energy. And
Mhm.
that's amazing. And it is good to hear that once you're kind of in a maintenance mode, that it's a once a month thing and not, like anything, once we're kind of rolling, we're protecting the gains we've already made. So
Mhm.
that's fantastic. I've heard you mention too, I know this is in the book, red light.
Mhm.
You're a fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of red light therapy. So you can get a device, either panels, okay, so it's like panels that open up, or you can get something that is a mask. And some of the masks will also cover your neck. Because remember, I said you want to make sure you don't forget about your neck and your chest.
Uh-huh.
Um, you want to make sure that it's at least, they're in nanometers. So you want to have at least like 680 nanometers of the red light. And then it doesn't take all that long. I've used both the mask and the panels, and I
Okay.
think I like the panels a little bit better.
Okay.
Um, the mask, some of the masks you can strap on, so you can
You can
multitask.
do stuff. Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you want to wash the dishes, you can't
I
do
can't
dishes, you have
really
to do the
paint my
laundry.
nails
Yeah.
anyway. Well,
But the nice thing about the panels is, and I do like 2 sessions in the morning. I set my alarm and it goes off, and then I'm not going to get up for 15 minutes. So what I do is I have my red light panels next to my bed. I turn them on, I do my face, then I do this section. And it helps to stimulate collagen development. But the thing with the panels is if you want to use it on a different part of your body, there's some anecdotal information that it can help with cellulite. So if you want
okay.
to put it on your thighs, or, you could
Right.
do that and try it there. Or it also helps with healing. So if you have some kind of a wound, the panel is a lot easier than the mask to put on another part of your body. And in fact, I don't have this in the book, but this is something recently with red
Ooh,
light therapy I'm using for my mouth
in your mouth.
uh,
Yep.
in order to help with your gums. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
That's such good advice. And again, though, you just said you do this every morning,
Yeah, with the
most
red light
mornings.
there, most mornings I do it. Now, again, once you've done it for several weeks, you can drop down to like maybe 3 times a week, but
Okay.
it's sort of part of my routine. And
Right.
then if
Self-care.
if some reason I don't do it, that if I miss a day or a couple days,
Hmm.
then I'm good because I have my routine set up.
Yeah. Are you like hardcore? Do you travel with your panels?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Panels are easier to fit into a suitcase than because the mask was in a big container that took up like,
It was
a
its
good
own,
portion,
yeah, it was
a
a
good portion
companion.
of the suitcase. So
Yeah.
that's the other advantage to the panels.
Love it. Such good advice. And we do find, I'm giggling because the stuff I travel with, somebody might think is just so wild, but it's like it's how I bring my routine with me.
Hmm.
And so that was why I was curious. Um, so let's talk a tiny bit about makeup, and especially any tips for women over 50, because I think if I were to, I've never worn a lot of makeup, but what we were doing in the 80s may not be my best look right now, or any tips for
Well, I
us.
think as far as foundation, you really need to. Most women can't wear the same foundation you used as you were in your 20s or your 30s because we all have, even though you're complimenting my skin, I still have some wrinkles. I've been experimenting with, and I don't have any affiliation, but Laura Geller makes makeup. It's sort of like a powder you put on for
Uh-huh.
more mature skin. So it looks like you're not wearing any makeup. I also have found what I like is more of a it's like a powder, but if you wet it, it becomes a little bit of a foundation. And I find because I need a little more coverage than if you need really light coverage, that's a little bit different. But if you want a little more coverage, I
Mhm.
really like the type of foundations that look like a compact. They look like
Right.
powder. They're not powder, but it's almost like a cream that's in between
Like
a
a
cream and a
mineral. Yeah.
Mhm. And so I'll use that if I want to put makeup on. Otherwise, sometimes I'll just use a BB cream. It's called Beauty Balm, and it has the sunscreen in it, and
Okay.
it's a moisturizer, and it has a little bit of color. So if it's
Okay.
like a weekend day and I'm just going to take the dogs out for a walk, I'll put that on. But some of the other things that people might forget about, and if you're not all that familiar with it, as we age, our eyebrows they get gray too, or
They
white,
do.
And so your eyebrows really frame your eyes and your face. So you may want to use a little bit of a eyebrow filler,
Hmm.
eyebrow brush to color to sort of frame your eyes. And then one tip, and I'll tell you, and when I tell you, you're going to start noticing it with other
Uh-oh.
people. But if you want your eyes to pop,
Uh-huh.
you put a little bit of a lighter highlighter in the corners, and then you can put some color on the end, and it really makes your eyes pop.
I love that. That is such a good tip. And for those who haven't played with it, again, and it doesn't have to be somebody who wears a lot of makeup. It just helps brighten us. And I was laughing with the yes, eyebrows turn gray. And I remember like my first gray hair on my head that I could see, it was like, oh, that's so cute. And now I'm like, oh, it looks like my hair's frosted. Just gray. Well earned,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
okay with it. That's a
Mm,
personal choice. But such a good tip. Eyebrows are often, I think, overlooked.
mhm,
And I always had like this is probably too much personal information. My grandmother was just a natural beauty, stunning. She was, on radio in New York City in the 20s, and she just but from my whole life that I could remember, her eyebrows were gone. She had overplucked, and so she had to draw eyebrows on every day. And so I'm a little eyebrow phobic. But I did notice, especially with the glasses and doing more camera work than I had ever done and getting older, that was like, oh yeah, my eyebrows need just a little, like you said, a little fill in, a
mhm,
little, a little,
mm.
especially being fair. I was blonde until I had 3 kids. And so my eyebrows really never darkened like my hair did. And they kind of just wash out if I don't
Mhm.
give them just a little pop.
Well, and if you haven't done it, you can say, "Oh my God." I mean, you're not necessarily used to it when you first start
Oh yeah,
coloring in your eyebrows, and it's like, this looks awful, but it doesn't. It's
it
just because
does.
you're not used to it on yourself. It's actually opening up your eyes, which is
Yes.
the window to the world. So you're enhancing your appearance. It's not, you know, but like I said, when you first, at least for me, when I was first
Yes,
doing,
it does feel very strange. I remember even the first time I used, like a little brush, like I was because it just felt so strange.
Mhm.
I would like take a Kleenex and kind of squeeze most of the tint off of the brush but that was fine. It was just my way of like easing myself into but it really does make a difference. And those are amazing tips. I'm going to circle back to if you haven't played with a little bit of highlighter in the corner of the eye just to open things up. That is such a great tip as well. Um, and again, these are easy things that don't take a lot of time. That really, there is I know I said earlier, like if you feel terrible, you're not going to look good, but there is something to when you feel you look good, you feel
Yeah.
better too, right?
Hmm.
So, that was Billy Crystal, right? Back in the day when you with his stand-up routine of, when you look good, you feel good,
Hmm.
and vice versa. So I love the way you really do talk about doable tips of what I would call
Hmm.
pillars. I know I've heard you say pain points, or, from the five areas. I know I skipped over, and I promised I wasn't going to keep you way over time, but I skipped over exercise and nutrition. Um, I want to circle back and touch on, do we need a ton we mentioned muscle, right? And there's so many health reasons why it's important for us as women to focus on building muscle as we age, or at least maintaining. But
Hmm.
do you have any differences in your approach? Do people need to be spending 20 hours in the gym a week? Like, what is your approach overall?
Well, I have two very energetic dogs. So and even though they're 3 and 4, they still need at least 4 miles a day of walks
Yes.
in order. A tired dog's a good dog. So I want good.
Yes.
I was really fascinated. I've used a pedometer. Now I use like a little Fitbit thing, but
Uh-huh.
before they even had Fitbits or Apple Watches, I mean, this is years and years and
Yeah,
years. I've been
I
using
remember them.
a pedometer. So people always think they need their 10,000 steps. So
Mhm.
actually, the company that made the pedometers, that was their marketing. There
Mhm.
was no research behind, do you need 10,000 steps? Now, in the meantime, research has occurred. So if you get about 2,700 steps, for most people, that's maybe a mile, a little more than a mile, your risk of dying early goes down by 8%. And then cardiovascular events like stroke and heart attack go down by 11%. So you say, okay, 2,700. But if you get 9,000 steps a day, which is probably 4 miles for most
Mhm.
people, your risk of dying early goes down 60%. So from 8 to 60%. And those icky cardiovascular events drop from 11 to 51%. So I really encourage people to try to get at least 9,000 steps. I mean, you can get more, you're getting
Sure.
more, there are significant benefits to getting it. And, there's things that you can do. I park as far away as I can from the grocery store,
Mhm.
and your cortisol level won't be as high because you're not fighting for a parking spot close to
Right.
the entrance.
Yeah.
Your
It's
car's not,
so very American to,
yeah,
need to get that closest parking spot.
yeah, yeah. Well, and then your car probably isn't going to get dinged, and you get extra steps in,
Yeah.
or walking up steps and walking
Yes.
down steps. So,
Yep.
a good rule of thumb is 1 story up and 2 stories down. So even if you have to go to the fifth floor, either
Right.
walk up a story to get the elevator or get off on the fourth and walk up to the fifth. Even dancing, dancing as
Mhm. I
you're
love
cooking,
it. Yep.
you don't have to go out. Or if I don't have my steps, and I want to look at social media
Uh,
around the house as I'm
oh,
looking
that's
at
cute.
Facebook.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we think of I typically like the word movement better than exercise. Um,
Hmm.
and it
That's
depends on
good.
where we are, right? Because I did just say I do think, whether it's resistance training, I know how important muscle is. Um, but it's yeah, the dancing in the kitchen, I live on a farm, and so when I shifted to 4 days at the clinic and 1 day working at home, that's what I never had to try to get more than 10,000 steps a day. That was just my natural in between clients. I'm in the garden, I'm with the horses, I have dogs. But it is what are you doing that you enjoy? You love your dogs and you love well-behaved
Mm.
dogs. So, You like walking your dogs, I love walking my dogs. Like that's their favorite. And they have a doggy door. They're in and out all day long. They love walking the property with us at the end of the day. That's part of our routine for mental health and physical health. And, and we like our dogs happy and well behaved as well. But everything counts, if you clean your house, you're
Right.
moving. So I love that you said, it sounds like you might play little tricks with yourself of like, okay, I didn't get my typical amount of steps. I'm going to walk and scroll now, walk and scroll safely. But
Yes. Yes.
and those are that goes back to, working things in a way that's doable where we can be consistent. And so I always say like the first step to creating change is awareness. Where are you right now? So if you're listening and you have never tracked your steps, that's where you start and you don't jump, if you start tracking and you are getting 2,000 steps a day, don't do 10,000 tomorrow.
No.
Just start building. And it really is amazing the difference, the movement makes and listening to your body for sure.
I love exercise. You're right. As part of my self-care when my kids were younger, not so young that I couldn't leave them at home, but in a very polite way, if I was starting to get stressed, they'd say, "Mom, I think you need to go." 'Cause it de-stresses me, and
Yeah.
it's some of my alone time,
Yeah.
even just walking.
It's a
Sometimes you just need to get
recharge.
away, even if it's for 15, 20 minutes. You come
Yes.
back and you feel better.
Yeah. And it's always interesting. I can tell you have a great relationship with your kids. My daughter, at the time when I was in kind of the beginning-ish of my healing journey, and I had a really dedicated meditation routine, and I was meditating twice a day. And that afternoon one, I would miss sometimes, and if I missed it, I kind of in hindsight now can see the pattern where if I missed it one day, fine, right? Like
Yeah.
no big deal. If I missed it a couple days in a row, she could feel it, and she would be like, I'll drive to the barn today. This is before we lived at the farm. I'll drive to the barn today. You meditate, which was again her polite way of saying like, you need a minute. So it is so important. And again, it doesn't mean you have to go away for a weekend. You can take a 15-minute walk or just close your eyes and go somewhere else for a few minutes. And it is all self-care. Do you have one nutrition, like, do you think everybody should be drinking water? Is there one thing that if somebody were to incorporate in to, nutrition wise that you think would really help move a needle?
There's two. So I would say water, I say, is liquid gold.
Yes.
80% of our cartilage is made up of water. So if you're trying to exercise and your muscles ache, you might not be getting enough water.
Really?
Plus, if you have a 2% loss of your hydration, I mean, it affects your mood, your response time, and cognition.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then if you take in enough water and you're like 1% above, these studies have shown is that you will naturally want to take in less added sugar,
Yes.
fat, and cholesterol laden food. So it is amazing. And there is a formula. It's an easy formula for people to figure out your minimum of what you need. So if you take your weight and you divide it by 3, that's the minimum number of ounces you need. So if you weigh 120 divided by 3, then 40 ounces is the minimum. Now, if you're exercising,
right.
yeah.
It's
Or if
hot
it's
out,
hot,
all the things. And some of us just need more water than others.
Right.
And so I think
If
that
you're drinking coffee, that
it
dehydrates you,
dehydrates
you need more.
you. Yep, yep. And maybe you can drink water before your coffee, and then,
Right.
it is so important. And I am always shocked at how many adults don't drink enough water.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
forget to talk about it, because for those of us that are water drinkers, it's not a conscious thing. It's just so I'm really glad that you
With so many times, Julie, in the afternoon when people think I need a cup of coffee,
right.
I need a candy bar, I need something, what they need is a glass of water
Hmm.
because you're actually dehydrated and you don't realize it. Hmm.
Yep. So I say try that first.
Correct.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't
Uh-huh.
mean you can't have whatever, but it is headaches. I mean, there's just so many things.
Hmm.
One of the reasons I was so excited to have you on the podcast is because we tend to gather up so much useful information for people through our journeys. But what I really love about the book and about your approach is it's all science backed, so like these are things you do that have worked for you, that when the whatever thousandth person said, what are you doing, you figured, all right, I need to write the book. um, but and listeners can tell you sprinkled in some good science, even in our conversation, and that is important. I'm not saying something that isn't backed by science can't work. It sure can. But it's just an approach that I value, and so I know a lot of time goes into, when I'm sure went into the book, but just exploring, you know what are really effective ways to stop the clock. So good. So you already gave us a ton of stuff, but here's your opportunity. You can repeat and highlight or come up with something else. But what is one step? It could be anything that listeners can take starting today. Usually I'll say to improve their health, but I'll go further and say to stop the clock.
Well, I think one of the things I'm going to give a little preview of the book that I've gotten reviews on and
Mhm.
feedback, an idea that people love is doing squats as you're brushing your teeth.
Yes.
So I have an electric toothbrush. So if I know I'm going to be really busy, it's 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes at night. And I'll either do leg lifts or I'll do my squats as I'm brushing my teeth.
Yeah.
That way I at least have gotten some exercise in if I think my day is going to be crazy. And people are like, I never thought of that.
Yes,
So
and I can tell you, so we have an in-body at the clinic, and so we're all about the healthy body composition as a wellness and anti-aging tool, and we have a patient, literally the only change she made in the 6 months between her appointments was
uh,
doing squats while her coffee brewed, and she lost weight, put on muscle, her labs were better. I mean, it was literally, that was the only thing she did. We have an espresso machine, so I do squats while the
yeah,
coffee is brewing.
okay. Yeah, that's
And
another way of doing it
and
too.
yeah, and while you're brushing your teeth, if it's squats, leg lifts, standing on one leg for,
Yeah.
like these
Mhm.
are.
Balance. Hmm.
But so I'm excited about that, because again, it's the where do we fit stuff in our day?
Hmm.
And I love the impact we can have. It's not taking extra time, right? I
Hmm.
am not, this is a personal thing. I'm not a gym rat. Like I don't,
Hmm.
that's not fun. I mean, we have a little gym at the house, but I'd rather go stack hay bales, honestly. Like
Hmm.
that's me. You love the gym, go to the gym, whatever, but these tips I think that have the most value are the things that you can do your facial exercises in the car and your squats while you brush your teeth, and it's and that is self-care, just creating
Hmm.
those routines I'm sure you don't have to convince yourself to do your squats while you brush. Like it's just part of your routine now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then I do my like strength training exercises. I love this little video series. So it's at 8 minutes. So I do two of those. I rotate them during the different days. And sometimes I miss them. And I track things. I have an old-fashioned calendar that I use and I mark down every day what I did. In fact, today was 110 weeks in a row that I have been
Wow.
doing it. So, I mean,
2
I did
years
it
on
off
the
and on.
dot.
Yeah. So I was like really proud of myself. But that's like motivation,
Yes.
that if I miss a day, I make up for it. But it's like I want to make sure on Fridays that I can put what the next week is, what the next number is. So you
I
have to
love it.
find ways to motivate yourself.
Yeah, and it should be fun. And I can see like your face just lit up when you're talking about your calendar, and if you're someone who like, would get obsessive about that in a way that's going to be detrimental, then don't,
Yeah,
find
right.
what keeps you motivated.
Mhm.
And so that's really good advice. And it goes back to the data. I think some of us value data even more, but we have to have some data. Like if you don't know how
Yeah.
many steps you're taking, if you're not paying attention to, are you drinking water, enough water? Are you doing things to put on muscle? And
Mm.
I love that. See, I knew we were so aligned. I love that you do the 8 minute, of course you do it twice now, but um, uh, that to me is how we build successful, lifelong supportive
Mhm.
routines. And so,
Well,
I
I'll tell you too, Julie, when the 8 minute series is, I have my ankle weights that I strap on and build, you have to build up. And then I have my
sure,
dumbbells that I use. And when I was doing that, I also do running periodically, half marathons. And so I hadn't done a half marathon for a while. And probably a year after I really got very into making sure I'm doing this every single day, I could not believe the difference in my performance just
sure,
from
yeah.
that basically 16 minutes a day of doing it. I had more endurance. I was less winded. I had much better timing. I'm like, wow. And I was
This
trying to think
works.
what makes the difference. And I'm like,
That
the only thing I
consistency.
did differently was the strength training,
Yeah.
16 minutes a day.
That's amazing, which is amazing, and so much gold because I find we were chatting about I lived right outside of Boulder, Colorado for 15 years, and everybody's always training for Ironmans or something, and then like the world comes here to train too, cyclists, and because of the altitude, and so, but there was this pattern I see in that mindset of you're either in training or you're not, right? So like there's not that consistent. And then it's like, oh, I have a race, 4 months out, I'm going to start. And so I love that you're like, wow, your body actually just showed you that this is if you think of how we are created and how we used to live, we were always
Mhm.
moving and lifting and
Right.
and we've just gotten so far away from that. But you really give a lot of amazing tips for, again, just building, right?
Mhm.
Parking further away, just really, really good stuff. So, and the book's on Amazon. It's really easy to find.
Right. Yeah, it is on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. So again,
Nice.
anti-aging and secrets of healthy living to stop the clock. If you're not sure, my face is on it
Yes.
on the cover. So am I getting the right one? Oh
Yep.
yeah, that's Mary Beth.
Yes, absolutely. And it is just packed with amazing information and really, really grateful that you took the time to write the book and share all the amazing things that you've learned because we need it. We need the information and we need it in the way that you present it where it's doable. So So appreciative of the book and of your time with us today.
Thank you.
And where's the best place? I talked about the book, but for those listeners that are listening on the go and aren't going to check the show notes, where's the best place for people to find you?
Well, I do have a website, www.marybethnewell.com, but I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well. So there's a lot of different ways to get in touch with me.
Amazing. Mary-Beth, thank you so very much.
It was a pleasure.
For everyone listening, remember you can get those show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. Hope you had a great time. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.